Sleeping Dogs is a game that, for a long time, has been called a very underrated game. But for the past few years, I've seen it on TikTok, on YouTube, and all these top 10 lists talking about the most underrated games of all time, or games that need a sequel. And I'm just here to talk about if it's actually still underrated, because lots of people know about it now, and it's just wondering if it's actually still underrated. I'm not going to go too much into detail about what the game is about. I'll just give a brief overview, because if you haven't played the game, it is a great story and definitely should check it out. I would highly recommend it. But essentially, the main character is Wei Shen, undercover police officer who is trying to infiltrate a gang in Hong Kong called the Triads. Wei went to America and then came back to Hong Kong, I believe, to be with his family or something like that. Either way, he's undercover in Hong Kong now, and he's trying to infiltrate a gang called the Triads. It's about how he ends up liking the lifestyle and has to balance between being a cop and being a part of the gang. It's a game that's an emotional roller coaster at times, and the balance between being a cop and being part of the gang is one of my favorite parts about it. And Wei grew up with some of these people, and it's just very hard to see how some of the outcomes go, but I really don't want to spoil a lot of the story. Just please play it for yourself and enjoy. It's a very interesting story, and I highly recommend you check it out if you've never played it. But for a while, it has been called underrated, which it was for a long time. I believe it was released in 2013 or 2014. I can't remember exactly, but it's been a while ago now. Made by Square Enix. I would say around probably 2017, maybe 2018, maybe later than that, is when I started hearing about it. I always heard how underrated it was, and I don't try to take opinions from other people. I try to make my own, and I wanted to play the game for myself because from what I saw, it looked pretty interesting, and the gameplay looked nice and everything like that. The gameplay in this game is probably one of the best parts about it. More the hand-to-hand combat than the gun gameplay, but the gun gameplay is not bad. It's just second to the hand-to-hand combat. Lots of martial arts, but there's a lot of different counters, and you can slam things on people's faces, you can throw stuff at them, the different combos and stuff you can do. It's just, I really like it. I think it's very fun. It's probably the biggest selling point to the game. Besides the story, like I said, the story is great. But it seems like more people like it now or know about it now than, back when in 2017 where people were calling it underrated. It's been all over the place, so I feel like it has a lot more exposure now. So I don't really know if it's actually still underrated at this point, because everyone knows how good it is. Or a lot of people, I should say, know how good it is. But is it enough to escalate it to it's properly rated now? I would say it's definitely not overrated. There's no way it can be overrated. It's just not enough people like it to that point, but enough people like it to where I would say, or I don't know if it's actually still underrated, but they have even made a movie about it now, which, they're doing all these these movie adaptations of games. They're making a Minecraft movie, and they made a Borderlands movie, which sucked. They're just making a bunch of different movie adaptations of games. And I feel like if you make a movie of a game, that means lots of people not only think highly of it, but also know about it at this point. So, like I said, I just don't know if it's actually underrated. People have been talking forever about how it needs a sequel, or at least some sort of game that is like a sequel, prequel to it. They did make DLCs for it that were pretty good. They weren't bad. I still think the base game is better than the DLCs, but regardless, people have been wanting a sequel for a while, and there have been no talks about it, at least that I've heard. And I would say it needs a sequel. It's very, very fun. The story is phenomenal, and I would say that for how much exposure it has gotten over the last few years, there is no reason not to make a sequel for it. I feel like it would definitely sell better than the first one as long as they did stuff right. But you never know, they could be making another game that they just haven't told us about. It seemed like Red Dead Redemption 2 came out of nowhere, and people have been talking about that game for a sequel forever. So maybe something is in the works, but I wouldn't count on it. This game is definitely more popular than it was when it was released, and even the years after that, and then when people were calling it underrated. It's definitely more popular now for the reasons I stated. There's a movie now, and there is just a lot more exposure to it. However, I would still say that it is a very underrated gem. There is a lot of people who know about it, but I don't think people grasp how great the story is and the gameplay is, and how great it actually is. It's definitely not, on a level of an Elden Ring or a Cyberpunk or The Witcher or any of these games that have been quoted as some of the best games of a generation, or at least of their year or time, whatever you want to say. It's definitely more popular, but it's an underrated gem. I would say now that it's properly rated, just not enough exposure.